From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined as always with our super producer, Alexis, codename Doc Holliday Jackson. Most importantly, you are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. We have some breaking news here. Doc, could we get like a breaking news sound cue? Perfect. Yeah, just so. Yeah. This is going to be a bit of a special edition here. As you know, longtime conspiracy realist, we typically want to find things that are below the fold of your mainstream news. And there's a lot of stuff happening, so we always kind of go back and forth about the things we would like to cover. Today, we are going to do one story, and it's a story that you have probably heard about if you are in the West. The great hubbub and to-do and hullabaloo about balloons, about unidentified flying objects being shot down by Uncle Sam. We do want to acknowledge before we get into this that there are other very real, very provable conspiracies occurring as you hear this, particularly on the part of Norfolk Southern.
Yes, and the companies that ship very noxious chemicals across the United States, as well as many other countries in the world. There's some really dangerous stuff there that it's really a culmination of a bunch of different episodes we've talked about, right? The toxic chemicals, the transportation infrastructure, and potential attacks on that infrastructure. So that's a big topic. We're going to cover it, but today we are focusing our eyes upward.
Yeah, so let's lay out the land here. You have probably heard.
Yeah, probably.
You've probably heard about balloons. Let's start there. You've probably also heard about the recent attention that governments are paying now to things that are not verified aircraft, right? There are airships. You have heard, probably, we imagine, about the balloon sent from China, sent from the country of China, whether it's a private entity in that country or whether it's the government of China. Someone there sent a surveillance craft over the North American continent. It went through Canada. It ended up getting shot down off the coast of Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. You can see some hilarious short form social media about it. As the thing gets shot down.
Can we add a few things?
Maybe we talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
Let's focus on that balloon, that the reporting that's been done on that, because that occurred. The shoot down occurred on a Saturday, right? When most people are doing other stuff. Unless you're in a hospitality job or another job that requires you to be at work on Saturday, you probably have the day off. There's at least a high percentage of people who officially have the day off on Saturday. And when something occurs on a Saturday like that, the initial reporting is often, if you imagine reporters having to go into the office and just like start, typing stuff up, or, from wherever they work from home, and gather as much info as they possibly can, get it up online as quickly as they can. And anytime that occurs with a story that was as large as this one, you have to look really closely at various outlets that are talking about it, right? Because many of them are ultimately getting their information directly from either the Department of Defense or some other government entity that is letting information out.
Yeah, and the question that I had too was, are these other events, associated with the shooting down of that supposed surveillance balloon from China, connected? Is it just that was the thing that triggered people to pay attention, and now this other stuff is trickling out? It's a real noodle scratcher, a real hullaballoon.
I want to get into all that stuff, guys. I don't know how we want to do the structure of this. Like, do we want to focus on the spy balloon first, or do we want to talk in generalities? Because there is something to what you just said, Noel.
This probably doesn't make it on YouTube, but in the theater of your mind, fellow conspiracy realist, please know that our pal Matt Frederick just did some pretty hard air quotes on parts of these sentences, and you need to be cognizant of that. Matt, how about this? I propose the following. We've given the basis of what in the news, right? Of what got attention in the news. And having established that, let's talk a little bit about some generalities. Let's call it background 101, right? And then we can talk about some stuff over Huron and over Alaska. Okay. And then maybe we close with some of the other bluer beams of the conversation.
Love it.
Does that sound good, guys?
Absolutely. So let's talk about why this spy balloon was even like seen or even a thing of interest to the United States military and the government. So a couple of the primary talking points that you will hear directly from the Pentagon and those who represent it is that the U.S. and NORAD, so like if you think about regions of Canada, regions in Europe, they are all now paying much more close attention to higher sectors of the atmosphere than they normally would have. And they're also paying attention to different types of objects that are flying within those levels. So if you think about the atmosphere, you have to think about something Meek Mill once said, there's levels to this there's So if you're standing on the Earth and you're looking up, first layer you're going to encounter is the troposphere, and that goes up to a certain level. We can talk about the feet. In the reporting I was reading about it was in kilometers, guys. It doesn't translate in my brain because I'm sadly American. But then above that, you've got the stratosphere. Above that, you've got the mesosphere. And way up above, just before you get to space, you've got the thermosphere. And the U.S. government, these other agencies, these other militaries, are now paying way more close attention to stuff that's above commercial aircraft, even above the ozone. Yeah.
So for fellow fans of the United States or people who happen to live there, the troposphere is 0 to 7 miles from the surface. If you're 7 miles tall, you are taller than the troposphere. The stratosphere is 7 to 31 miles, 12 to 50 kilometers. The mesosphere is 31 to 50 miles. There's no one that tall.
Nope.
And the thermosphere is 50 to 440 miles. What you're hearing a lot about is the measure of altitude. We discussed this previously, right? Like, why have a balloon when one has satellites? And the answer fairly conclusively is to avoid certain types of radar and to gather data, right? Or to test, do a little feint, right?
That's exactly. Okay. So, dude, yes, Ben, right on. Because if you're a satellite, you're so much higher, you're so much further away from the Earth. Even if you got the best optics in the world, you can, those optics are limited by the distance away you are from the object you're trying to observe. If you got a balloon,
we're not talking about political optics. We're talking about lenses.
Yes,
surveillance equipment.
But if you reduce that distance away by a huge factor, and let's say you're flying at 40,000 feet in the air or 20,000 feet in the air, if you've got similar optics, my goodness, you can see everything. And you may also have other types of imaging, like a FLIR style camera that can see temperature, that can see all kinds of stuff like that. You're doing pretty great. You can get some really intense intelligence, some close-up stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to go meta with it real quick to take the idea of a scope and optics and what one can see. There's also a lot in this conversation about controlling optics, controlling what exists in the conversation in the Overton window of mass media. Now, this is not to disparage the people who are doing excellent reporting on continuing aerial phenomenon. But this is to say that that aerial phenomenon existed way before the 2023 Chinese spy balloon incident, as it's being called on the battlefield of Wikipedia. And I'm sure that entry is pretty nasty right now. If you want to have fun on any Wikipedia entry, when you pull it up, you will see a couple tabs, depending if you're on desktop or your smartphone or whatever you use to make yourself easily trackable. You'll see a thing where it says article, and then you'll see a tab where it says talk. If you want to see the juice, go to the talk tab, right? And that's where you see people bringing heat and debate over what becomes record. So with this, with knowing that Wikipedia is kind of a landmine, we do have to establish something that a lot of mainstream news sources are not saying right now, which is that this is not new. We were talking about this off air today because, weirdly enough, folks, we are all still friends in our personal lives, and we text each other weird stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And it is proven, it is known that there is an Illuminati launching balloons. There is a cabal, and they are weather nerds.
Yes,
and they
are.
launch balloons all the time, and they love to hang out. and
presumably in front of green screens while gesturing at various patterns and such.
Oh, those are the acolytes. Let's see. According to the United States and multiple governments, weather balloons are released from like almost 1,000 locations. 900 locations across the planet are releasing weather balloons twice a day. Now, granted, the thing from China that got shot down off Myrtle Beach was not one of these.
It's a very different thing.
Right. To pretend it was is purposely misleading, but to pretend it was anomalous is also, it's either cynical and misleading and purposely deceptive, or it is cartoonishly, offensively ignorant. Like, if you thought that was the first one, how can you vote? Like,
Well,
how do you dress yourself?
So, okay, hold on. So I just have to say, when I initially started reading about it, I had thoughts of the old How Stuff Works days of learning about weather balloons, and I didn't have all my facts straight. So it wasn't out of the realm of possibility that it was a weather balloon. I just didn't understand a few things. And Ben, somebody shared some information with us from the National Weather Service that had some very specific things about what these weather balloons do, their capabilities, and most importantly, the time that they spend in the air. I'm just going to rattle off a couple of these. These weather balloons can travel up to 100,000 feet in the air. That's higher than any of the ones that we recently shot down, or any of the objects that we recently shot down. And they only last, what I think, Ben, it's 2 hours, maybe, roughly, how long one of these weather balloons stays aloft. And they only travel about 125 miles maximum. So this weather balloon that was shot down, this balloon that was attached to some stuff from China, traveled much further and much longer than a standard weather balloon.
Yeah, 100%. This is not what's a good name for an Illuminati of weather nerds? And we say this with great affection, but they're
Illuminoa.
Illuminoa's good. I like that.
Just call them the Weathermen.
Oh,
as an homage.
Illuminorad. NORAD's got a nice, that's my favorite acronym.
Illuminorad. Yeah. The Weathermen. Yeah, these are great. Send us your suggestions.
The Weather Overground. Sorry.
The Weather Overground. You son of a gun. Okay. So, and Illuminorad. So these folks are not involved with this sort of stuff. We know that on the heels of this being reported, it grabbed the spotlight of Western news, right? Sorry, thousands dead in Turkey and Syria. Sorry, Ohio, there's a balloon. And that's what gets the figurative headline, right?
Oh, wait, there's another one. And then another one. Oh, my God, there's another one.
But it's not a balloon. And who would have thought that the United States government would come out and have a press conference where they say, we promise we don't think it's aliens.
There's no reason to.
Someone got paid.
But their language. Oh, guys, we're going to have to pull it up and really analyze the full language here. Maybe we do that towards the end because they are being very careful in how they're stating it. And I swear it's designed to make people like me go, oh, wait a second, what?
We definitely can't say for sure that aliens don't not exist. Right?
But didn't they say something to the effect of like, we're not ruling that out, or they were asked something pointedly and they said something
keep saying
vague.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
We can't rule that not in.
And then they say, but not it. And then they do the Spider-Man pointing meme. Yeah.
But China, China. So I want to get to one other thing that's tangential to the weather balloon phenomena and the reason that a bunch of these objects got shot down at once and why the government is paying attention to these objects.
Publicly paying attention.
Publicly, right on. And we're going to talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsor.
And we've returned. It's February 10th, 2023. The northern coast of Alaska. Not many people visit, and not many people see the stuff that goes in the sky. It's something you could miss. It's not like it's flying over New York City or over East Palestine, Ohio.
And it's also not like the weather balloon that got shot down just 6 days prior to this, because that balloon was huge. That balloon was about 200 feet tall, and it was carrying about a ton. It was over a ton of payload. So this was a big thing. It was white in the sky against a blue background. You could see it. That's why we were talking about there were images, right, from just people's cell phones where you could see the white dot moving across. In this instance, something is much smaller, and it's moving much slower, which is what I want to get to before we even talk about the specifics here, guys. According to the DoD, one of the other major reasons that several of these objects were seen and targeted and shot down over this short period of time is because, according to them, they are now also looking at objects that move much, much more slowly than a bomber or a jet fighter or, some other style of conventional weaponry that would be in the air. They're looking at stuff that just kind of goes across the sky, in this case of the February 10th object, between 20 and 40 miles per hour.
Seems easy to catch up with.
But conventional radar wouldn't have picked that up. It's moving too slowly, which is, again, what you're talking about, Ben. They're trying to literally operate over the radar.
It's worth it. Keep it in, right? And of course, we have to acknowledge that right now, that craft, as well as several other craft that are roughly in the same part of the world, are UFOs. They are officially unidentified flying objects, or, what's the new euphemism? UAP?
That's the one. UAPs.
Yeah.
But everybody keeps referring to them as UFOs in both the reporting and the freaking government.
Wait,
calling
do
them
you
UFOs.
think that's pointed? Do you think that's like a editorial choice? Because it seems like folks have been using UAP pretty consistently for a while.
In a couple of, statements that I saw in front of a podium, UAP was used. And then UFO is used almost everywhere else. I don't know if that's an SEO thing just for the reporting to get picked up and seen, and everybody knows what that is. I don't know.
Maybe it's like that movie where someone's going, stop trying to make UAP happen. You know?
Yes, fetch. Stop trying to make fetch happen.
Yeah,
I mean, it's Mean Girls.
Mean Girls. That's right.
I think it might have something to do with what we were talking about or alluding to. There's a desire for this story and series of stories that is confusing. Honestly, like as we were looking at this to talk about it today, it gets super confusing, super quick because so much happened in such a short span of time, and they're all very similar incidents. So I don't know, there's something to it.
Yeah, especially considering that so many craft of this sort, or unidentified objects of this sort have existed, right? And have gone back and forth over national borders. This is not a condemnation of meteorologists, but have gone back and forth over borders. They're doing the same thing that they've done often. And now they're being in the news. And one of the first questions we must always ask ourselves is why are sources focusing on a thing, right? And it can be very strange to recognize when you are in an information bubble. And then again, this is not to denigrate any of the awesome reporting that's been going on. But to your point, Matt, there's a story on February 10th. There's a story on February 11th. There's a story on February 12th. 3 days in a row.
Three objects, different ones shot, and they're flying much lower than the Chinese balloon, which again, whether it's privately owned or state owned, we texted Xi and he doesn't know anything about it. And he said that publicly, right? And he was also like, stop making Winnie the Pooh jokes. And we're like, oh, whatever, LMAO.
You guys, I think I'm hearing distraction. Perhaps. I mean, again, my earlier question and to your earlier points, both of you, it's not like this hasn't happened more than we're seeing it reported. There's just an uptick in reporting.
Well, NORAD or the U.S. government or the Canadian government hasn't been shooting these things down, at least publicly, right?
Right.
I don't think they've been wasting their missiles on anything of this sort at all. I mean, really, honestly, the difference is we are spending significant amounts of money to track these things and take them down.
Missiles are expensive is what you're getting at.
F-22s are crazy expensive as well. Your tax dollars at work, folks. Sorry, I know some people probably wanted, like healthcare or a library or food.
Yeah.
But don't worry.
No. We're going to spend $400,000 a pop per unidentified object because we're going to shoot Sidewinder missiles at them. And that's how much those cost.
But it's way more than that. But wait, folks, there's more. But the thing is also, if you're thinking about national defense is the great boogeyman and its superpowers to open wallets, right? Yep. And that's what happens.
Oh, dude, let's talk about national defense. Let's talk about why these things were shot down. And let's do a little comparison here. We talked about it a little bit, but let's just make sure everybody has a concrete image of the difference between these two things and the reasoning behind why they're shot down. So that first weather balloon, at least according to the government, the Pentagon, the balloon was part of a, quote, fleet of balloons developed to conduct surveillance operations, which have also violated the sovereignty of other countries. So that's the reason it got shot down, right? Mm-hmm. It's a threat because surveillance is being conducted. And that thing that got shot down was at about 60,000 feet in the air, 60 to 65,000 feet in the air. And then comparing it to the February 10th UFO that we're talking about here, that one was only flying at 40,000 feet. As you said, it was lower, Ben. But what's the reason it got shot down?
Oh, it's too dope.
It's too dope to live.
Yeah, it was too cool. Other people were looking at regular, boring sky. You know what I mean?
It was just too dope. Well, all right, I'll tell you the reason given, at least officially.
Okay.
Because it was flying at 40,000 feet, that's in the area where commercial airliners fly, where if you're in a Delta flight, you're going to be around that, altitude around that. That's like flight ceiling kind of thing.
Right. Civilian flight paths, commercial flight paths.
So according to the Pentagon, the government, whoever it was, this thing, quote, posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. That's why it got, knocked out.
Which is also the official reason that the U.S. held off on popping the first balloon that went viral in the news, right? They waited until it got over the coast.
Yep.
And the rationale being a quite reasonable rationale. You don't want fallout to happen. However, these last few incidents have been described in very different terms, right? Definitely, probably not inside the bounds of being alien activity or something, the White House says, but they did describe some of the objects. The February 10th object is described as about the size of a small car. I guess that's a small American car.
And well, they also called it cylindrical and grayish silver or silverish gray.
Right.
Which sounds weird to me.
And that lower flight path is honestly dangerous, right? 60,000 feet is a pretty high elevation. It's tough for other craft to get there. And one of the questions that we've been grappling with, and a lot of people have been grappling with, is what does this mean for many ufologists, just like ourselves, or like our pals at MoveOn? This is fascinating because it is not unprecedented, but it's quite rare for a government like the United States to openly say, we don't know. It's so rare, in fact, that when you hear the world's most powerful military several times over say, we don't know. We don't know, so we shot it down. When you hear that, it's tough to believe them. You're thinking, what'd you do with all those billions and trillions of dollars?
Yeah.
You don't have like one satellite they can look at? You don't have like one plane that can go see it?
That's the thing. These fighter jets were scrambled to observe the objects each time before any action was taken, to fire upon them. So there must be some kind of sensor data, some kind of visual data of these things. There's got to be. And
we should also mention they don't all have the same shapes.
Well, exactly. They don't. Exactly. This one, February 10th, cylindrical, silverish gray. It was size of a small car. And this was the one that was moving really slowly, 20 to 40 miles per hour. If you scramble a jet to fly by that thing, it's not really going that fast. You've got a jet that's going hundreds of miles per hour. You can probably slow down a little bit. I guess you can't slow down that much because it is at 40,000 feet and you have to maintain a certain speed if you're that high. But still, you can get some shots. You can figure out what it looks like. The second one, they said this one was also small and cylindrical. They referred to it as, quote, smaller in size than the weather balloon from February 4th.
We also start to see multiple reports of past incursions. In the U.S., the idea is that the military had some anomalous data and only with the benefit of retrospect was able to say, hey, this fits the pattern of a high altitude balloon. I kid you not, just 12 minutes ago, Al Jazeera reported that Ukraine shot down 6 Russian reconnaissance balloons. To quote Will Ferrell, our coworker, I guess, in Zoolander, balloons are so hot right now. Did I do that? Is that Zoolander? Is that correct?
Yeah. What's his name? Mugatu?
I think that's it.
Oh, that's it. That's
I actually
right.
just watched that the other night with my girlfriend, and she hated that she loved it.
It's pretty great. Oh, Hansel.
So good.
Oh, Hansel is so hot right now. Hansel will always be so hot.
You just got to do it, man. I can't do that guy's voice.
Dang, no, that's a really good voice, Matt.
Nope.
Say wow. Dude, please. The people want you. I think he did it. Noel, I think he's got a good Wilson. So the question here is this a new thing? Right? The idea, the technology behind a lighter than air balloon is pretty ancient. So why all the reporting now? Right? And for fans of Santa Claus, know that NORAD greenlit the attack on one of these objects as it was approaching the North Pole. If Christmas doesn't happen, someone caught Santa slipping.
As part of tradition, I mean, NORAD has done this whole Santa tracker thing, which is all well and good and cute. And then you kind of remember that NORAD is also like a government agency that might not be telling us the truth. And even that Santa tracker thing is a fun way to distract you from that.
But you see, Santa moves real fast. If he didn't, he couldn't get it done. You know what I mean? So like
in the Marvel universe, Santa Claus is an Omega level mutant. For the 12 people who care about that, awesome. I'll see you at the theaters.
Let's talk about NORAD. Wait, what is it? North American Aerospace Defense Command.
Yes, you nailed it. Yeah.
Okay, so NORAD had some interesting things to say about the third object that got shot down. They said, quote, "We did not assess it to be a kinetic military threat to anything on the ground, ellipses, but it was a safety flight hazard and a threat due to its potential surveillance capabilities." Huh.
Stop peeking.
You know what I mean? Peeking. There, yes. Oh, okay. Guys, I want to get into the uber conspiracy stuff here about this because there's some things we need to talk about. Is there anything else we need to describe about any of these? Oh, the UFO 3, the one we're talking about right now. This was weird for me, guys. It was described as an octagonal shape.
Right. Like we said, there were differing shapes. It's an octagonal shape with some stuff trailing off of it was one of the reports, right? And it's flying at 20,000 feet.
Yeah. Which is,
for those of us playing along at home, that's 40,000 feet lower than the balloon that started all the okie dokie as we talked about off air. You know, hope you're okay with that, Doc. I think we all just love that phrase. Let's talk a little bit about that octagonal shape. Does that indicate anything in particular to you?
Yeah. Not a balloon, guys. Who makes octagonal balloons?
I mean, maybe future space balloons that we're not aware of yet, but typically balloons need to be kind of oval or, balloon shaped. Teardrop.
I don't know. Maybe they're making cylindrical balloons now, octagonal balloons. I just haven't seen them. They haven't hit the consumer market yet because I want those. My next party.
Cool Keith, maybe, a.k.a. Dr. Octagon. Again, Dr. Octagon, Cool Keith, you guys, come on. All right. So that's for you, Keith, if you hear it. But so yeah, these are solid questions. It's strange how so many stories can get maybe a headline or a byline in the news, and then others become exhaustively examined with no shortage of pundits speaking the same talking points with circular tautological logic. Well, that sounds very cool, Keith, Dr. Octagon, actually. So the question always has to be, why is something being covered? More so than other things, right? And perhaps this is where we take a pause for a word from our sponsors and come back with some uber conspiracies, as you call them.
And we're back. Okay, here goes, guys. Well, let's just say it. We're being distracted, right? Because it feels like there's nothing massively important about this for the American people. Is there?
Well, possibly. You just need more information.
Then let me game that out.
Okay.
Let's say on February 4th, that Saturday, the U.S. shoots down the first weather balloon thing. They begin attempting to recover it, all the debris that lands in the ocean. They discover something that is extremely troubling. Something that was being monitored by that device attached to the balloon that gave them such pause that, oh my God, we got to shoot these things down now. They're tracking X, whatever X is. We got to take action. So for 3 days in a row, the U.S. military, NORAD, all take action, just shoot these things down because now they know what they're doing. Do you think there's any potential there?
I mean, possibly, sure. but there's a bit of a black box as well. So we've established earlier that we know this is different from many other balloons. They're launched about twice a day from 900 plus locations around the globe, and they go pretty high. But the light that burns brightest burns briefest. So they've got a lifespan of a little over 2 hours. But we also know that now, for some reason, and without attributing motive here, now for some reason, multiple countries are reporting multiple balloon or surveillance balloon incursions. The government of China said U.S. designed balloons have gone over their airspace more than 10 times since 2022. Japan is saying that Chinese balloons have gone over their airspace. Saying that a country has sent a balloon into your airspace is so hot right now. I do want to rewatch Zoolander.
That is true. We've been looking a lot at different news sources for this just to see what people are saying. There are a ton of rumors being spread around about, at least when I was watching Fox for a little while, and the rumors there, actually talking to my dad about this, are that potentially these balloons that were flying over the continental U.S. and the northern area there over Canada, between, around the border area, is that they're monitoring on the ground the gasoline, the oil pipelines that run kind of down across the United States. Do you guys think there's any possibility to that? Or have you guys seen any reporting about them possibly basically looking for weak points within the infrastructure of the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I heard. The Chinese balloon was looking for was weapon sites, things like that, or weak points in the infrastructure and places that would maybe be vulnerable to attack. And I think we talked about that when we discussed the whole balloon being shot down thing on Strange News previously, as to why you'd use a balloon versus a satellite. Versus the kind of stuff that we can see on Google Maps. Even like there was some benefit to being able to have such a device travel at a lower altitude, whether it was to get closer, intel on things that you wouldn't be able to see from a satellite photo, which would be things like you're talking about, like weak points, entry points, stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. All right. I'll just say it, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. This feels like there's, I don't want to say smoke and mirrors, but there's some smoke and there's maybe a mirror. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of spin here because, again, high altitude surveillance craft have been around before. This is not, the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk. This is not the first man. This is not Yuri Gagarin, right? Or whichever cosmonauts got lost. This is something that has happened before. And the question is, why is there so much focus on it? And why is there, to your point, Matt, why is there such skullduggery and obtuse reporting here? I would also draw everyone's attention to another statement from NORAD, which came out on, I guess Valentine's Day in the U.S. F-16s just intercepted Russian bombers near Alaska. Yep. And they said they weren't a threat, and it feels like maybe they were just, out shopping for balloons or UFOs. And they ran across some Russian bombers. And then they said, you guys, you got to leave. And the Russian bombers were like, you got us.
We weren't even really going in your territory. We're just kind of skimming the surface right on the edge right there.
OMG, you were looking for balloons too? Tight.
You see any of those octagons, man?
I mean, that's the question, though. And that's a question people ask, and it's a valid question, right? I don't think we're at a point where we can conclusively say this is a distraction, but we do have to game out that possibility, right? If there is, just like we were talking about earlier, when something goes viral on social media, it's proven. It is known now. It's Some people did call us crazy, but it is known now that the architects of social media, who do have support from intelligence agencies, can and will propagate a viral thing, a fun thing, right, in place of actual news or real events or things that don't fit a status quo narrative. So unfortunately, it's fair to ask that. The next thing we have to ask is the real juicy stuff. Noel, Matt, for anyone who hasn't heard the multiple episodes we did about this, what is Project Bluebeam?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Ben. It's one of my favorite subjects. Guys, Project Bluebeam generally involves the use of holograms in the sky, projector technology, to make it seem like there's either an extraterrestrial invasion or a return of religious figures, such as the Prophet Muhammad or Jesus, to make everyone across the world united in the fact that the way that they imagined the world would end is kind of happening, but we need to gather together and all be one humanity, especially in the event of an alien invasion or attack, right? And did I get it wrong, or is that about right? I think that's about right.
That's my understanding. It's like Space Force before Space Force was Space Force.
Yes. Guys, what worries me about this, if this is some kind of, dipping the toes into Project Bluebeam by shooting down all these UFOs, generally in these stories, the way it plays out is very Watchmen style, where there's not just an alien invasion or, oh, wow, UFOs are real in this way, or they are extraterrestrial. Aliens exist. What? No, the aliens have to attack. They have to be a threat. There has to be a show of force, if you will, 9/11 style event that gets the attention of the global populace, where people die, Manhattan gets flattened, that kind of stuff.
Right, because if there are entities that exist in terrestrial space obeying the laws of physics as humans understand it, they will traverse the vast chasms of time and the universe to show up and get brought down by a sidewinder. Right. Yeah, that's bad move on their part. I want to show you this, guys. This will be interesting. I'm going to share a thing with you.
Uh-oh.
Right. It's a very easy Google search. You can play along at home, folks, fellow conspiracy realists, but pay close attention when Matt and Noel tell you this, because your mileage may vary by the time this episode comes out. Here, I am sharing it. Hope you can see it. So could you guys read the search terms and then read the top response?
Project Bluebeam balloon. And the top response is Project Bluebeam, U.S. shoots down mystery objects.
Oh, above that.
Sorry. Mm-hmm. And the top result is like a search tip, kind of a Google, hey, are you sure you didn't mean this kind of vibe? And it says, it looks like the results below are changing quickly. If the topic is new, it can sometimes take time for reliable sources to publish information.
Oh, yeah, it's true. No, it's so true. I'm really glad they do this. I'm really, really glad that Alphabet decided to not be evil in this instance. Check the source. Are they trusted on the topic? Come back later. Other sources might have more info on the topic in a few hours or days, which is exactly what we're doing here, folks.
Let's get more tips. Evaluate info you find with Google. Oh boy. All right. So this is where we get to a really interesting place, because if you are already given to a certain narrative, then seeing Google or Alphabet, right, say check back later, that feels like a smoking gun of a cover up, right? Rather than some sort of attempt to verify and confirm sources. I'm just saying, like, how much of that is putting out the fire versus throwing gas on the fire?
Interesting. I don't know. I guess it depends on the way your lens is tuned when you encounter that message, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange, you guys, because it's just the nature of the speed of these stories and occurrences. It feels like it feels like that old trope of getting prepared for the alien invasion. letting it sink in. It's normalized. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, they shot down a UFO. Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about that. Well, what happens when the next UFO that gets shot down is moving much faster and it's the size of, I don't know,
Don't make it metrics. Yeah, I was going to say, don't make it metric system, man.
It was the size of a Popeyes, and it was moving very rapidly through the air.
I love that. I love the measurements. So this is where we start to ask some hard questions, and they're questions that we would love your help with, folks. Now, of course, there are many other things going on in the world today, but that's part of what Matt Knoll, Doc Holliday, and I are asking. And we hope you're asking it too. Why is there so much coverage about this with so few real answers? And will those answers be forthcoming? What else is happening in the world? And what do you think about these things? Have you seen unidentified aerial phenomenon in your neck of the global sky? What do you think this is all about? Is it a clear and present danger? Is it bred in circuses?
Is it a reason to justify the new budgets for monitoring the skies in this way?
Yeah. Eisenhower, I think it was Eisenhower who said every missile represents a library that could have been built, or a school, or a hospital.
All right. Well, hey, you can find us online everywhere. On YouTube, we're Conspiracy Stuff. On Twitter, also Conspiracy Stuff. And strangely enough, on Facebook, Conspiracy Stuff again. But
wait, there's a pattern?
There's a pattern, you guys.
There's always a pattern. There's always a pattern.
But then it shifts.
It does shift indeed.
Yes, it can shift to the telephonic realm. You can access us there by giving us a phone call at 1-833-STDWYTK. You can leave a message, tell us a story, ask us a question, whatever you wish. Just let us know if it's okay to use your voice facsimile on one of our weekly listener mail episodes, and give us a cool nickname to call you.
Oh, and don't forget Instagram and TikTok, where we're Conspiracy Stuff Show. But if you don't like any of that stuff, why not instead send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.